my name is Kyle Davis. I'm a junior here on the track team, and I do both long and triple jump primarily, but I also do kind of the 60, 200, 100, kind of the shorter sprints. I qualified for All Atlantic Regions last year, or ECAC is kind of when it was still that. I also have placed in almost every E8 or Empire 8 championship that we've gone to, and then going into this year, super close to qualifying for Atlantic Regions, but I haven't done it yet, but there's one more weekend to do it, because I did qualify for Liberty Leagues in the long jump, triple jump, and in the 60. So every single meet before I go out there, I get like really nervous, and I don't really get nervous like the days before. I'm like usually really excited, and then meet day I get really nervous. When we have home meets in A&E, there's like the top like balcony part, and I always sit by myself like near the window and listen to the same two songs every single time before. I always listen to The Greatest Show. It's from The Greatest Showman, and then the other song's called Walk Unafraid by First Aid Kit, and I always listen to those two songs and then go warm up, and like once I listen to those, I'm like in it, like I'm ready to go. But like when I'm warming up around the track, like I always feel nervous, and I always feel like significantly more sore, and I'm sure you can relate to that feeling than I actually am. And then once I like get on the runway and like start doing the warm-ups, then that's when I'm like in it, and I usually feel like really good at that point, or really bad, but I usually feel really good. And then once I like step on the runway, it's always, every single time my first jump, I always mess up. I either foul it, or it's like not even close to the board, or it's just a terrible jump. But once that kind of initial feeling goes away, like I'm fine for the rest of the meet. Like I'm like in it, and that feeling of like just being like super laser focused, and I like to kind of be in my own zone and like focused, and like get annoyed when other teams are like talking and like yelling at each other. So I like to try and like be by myself kind of. So first time I came out was freshman year of high school. It was actually on the bus home from a track meet. I was talking to one of my friends, and she was kind of like, oh, like, haha, you're so gay. And I was like, yeah, I actually am. And she was like, what? And I was like, wait, what? No, I'm not. I'm actually not. Because it was just kind of like that. I had like kind of thought it, but I never like really actually did. And then like one day I just kind of said it, and I was like, oh God, it's out there now. Like this one girl knows. And then like she tried to talk about it, and I was like, we're not talking about this ever again, ever. And she was like, no, I want to. I was like, no, we're not talking about it. And like a month later, she asked me again, and I was like, I'm still not talking about this. I refuse to talk about it. And then she ended up telling a couple of my friends, like that were like our mutual friends, and they asked me about it, and like I started telling them, and then they're like, oh, you should tell your mom. So I told my mom, and I remember like sobbing, like literally like completely all out, like writhing, and I was like, it's fine, like I didn't know, but it's fine. And I was like, okay, cool, as I was still like sobbing, like I cried for like 3 days straight. Obviously I was scared of like stereotype people like not liking me, like losing friends, and in high school like I did lose a few friends, like not like a lot of friends, but I don't really have a lot of friends from my high school now, and I think that it's definitely part of it. I also remember like definitely when like once I like started coming out, there was like a few kids that like said stuff about me, but like I had friends in high school who like kind of stepped in and like said something, because I was like the popular kid, so they like wanted to defend me. But I was really nervous, like especially about my family, what they would think, because like I know that there's like the big stigma about like having a gay son, like that it's like not good, obviously. So I was nervous about that, and I was like kind of nervous for myself too. Like I think that other people were a lot more accepting of it than I was, because I like always thought like maybe I was, maybe I'm not, but like I kind of knew that I was from when I was younger, but I like didn't want to admit it to myself. So I was like mostly scared that when I started telling people, it would become real, and like I wouldn't like grow up and like marry a girl and have kids. But obviously like I don't want to marry a girl, so like it's like good in a sense, but it's just like the traditional like mold. I had a really good experience coming out that I'm like super thankful for. That like no one really said anything, like at least to my face. A lot of people in my high school were like super like more conservative and like didn't really know anyone at all. Like I was the first person from my high school that was openly gay. Like there were people who were, but like it wasn't like a thing that people talked about. So when I came out, like a lot of people like talked to me about it to try and like find out information, or they would talk behind my back. One of my friends like told me that there was one kid once who was like, they had anatomy together my junior year of high school, and they were like talking about it, and he was just basically like, oh, look, I can't believe that, that's so gross, like whatever. And she's like, oh, so you'd rather be in a relationship where like you're getting cheated on or like abused than like know someone who's gay? And he's like, yeah, literally I would, like that's so fucking gross. And she was like, okay, that's like ridiculous. So like that was the most people kind of talked about it. Before I like came out all the way too, like people started like spreading rumors about it, so like that was really nerve-wracking, but like everyone was fine with it. I do remember like the best experience I ever had is there was this kid who was like super religious that I was friends with. We played soccer together when I was like, from when I was like in second grade till like when I was a senior. And he came up to me once in class and he was like, I just want to talk to you for a second. And I was like, oh God, he's gonna like roast me or like say something about it. And he basically said like, I was never accepting of gay people at all, but now that like I know you and I know that you're like normal, it's fine. And that was like a really like touching thing to me too, because like obviously like it is normal, like it's not like a weird thing. I don't think that like, I definitely don't think I get treated any different. Like sometimes people make, like I always say this, like people make jokes, but like in the same way that people would make jokes about someone being straight. Like they're not like, oh my God, like faggot, like all this stuff. They just say like oh, like they like make jokes about me like hooking up with boys instead of like hooking up with girls, which like obviously makes sense because I'm gay. So it's like they like actually they treat me like the same, but it like has to be different. Like, and I'm fine with that because it's like it's not like I'm being singled out. It's actually like I'm being like included because they're making jokes that like are relevant to me. So it's like funny. There's this big like kind of stigma that I had in my own head that like I had to earn everyone's respect like more so than everyone else. And that was like a really hard thing for me to do freshman year because I wasn't good. Like I wasn't bad, but I wasn't good either. So it was like a weird like kind of crisis in my head. Like I've always been the best. Like in high school I was always the best no matter what. And that's like why people respected me because like I was good. So you can't like fuck with a person who's good. And here I like wasn't the best. And it was really weird for me to try and like figure that out. And then when I started telling people, everyone was fine with it, and I've almost never had an issue with it. So I've been thankful, like, because there was someone who was on the team who left right before I got here freshman year. Like he was still here, but he just dropped the team, but he was gay too. So like it was like a good like transition basically, because people had like known someone and they were like so accepting of him. So when I came here, it wasn't even like a big deal. And I like basically it was like them asking like, oh, where are you from? Like it was like the same kind of information. Or like, do you have a girlfriend? Like, no, I'm gay. Like, oh, okay, cool. Like it wasn't like a, oh God, like I can't believe this, like this is gross, like I don't want to like be in the locker room with you, because I know that's like a big stereotype is like, oh God, like there's a gay person in the locker room, this is terrible. But like I've never had any experience like that. The tattoo on my leg was drawn by one of my best friends back home, and she's a lesbian, so she was like out at the time, and she's like a lot older than I am, but we worked together. And we went out to eat, like there's like a restaurant where I work, so we like went out to eat together, and I was like talking to her about it. And this was after like, this was like my senior year of high school, before I had really told everyone, before I started dating a guy, like, and I just basically said, like, I think I'm gay. And she was like, oh, like, at first she was like, haha, like, I get it, like, you're trying to, like, fit in with me, because she was out, too. And I was like, no, like, I actually think I am. And we talked about it for, like, 2 hours, and I figured out, like, okay, like, it's okay if I am. Like, it's normal, it's fine. Like, she, like, talked me, like, into it, basically, like, made me feel okay about it. And she went to art school, and so she went to Mass Art, and she like offered to draw my tattoo for me because she had a few as well, and I like always wanted to get one of like a winged foot, and I always wanted to get it there, and I didn't know like kind of what I wanted, but she offered to draw it, and that was like super sentimental, obviously, because she was the first person I like really like had like a heart-to-heart conversation with about it. It wasn't just like, I think I'm gay, the other person's like, oh, we still love you anyway. Like it was like a real conversation. And she like again like took my, and the spike that it's like based off of too is my actual track spike in high school. It's the first shoes that I ever jumped over 40 feet in triple jump and over 20 feet in long jump, and like I'm never gonna jump 50 feet in triple jump, and I'm never gonna jump 30 feet in long jump, so those are like really big landmarks for me too. And also track's like the one thing that I brought like from high school to college, and it was like the one thing that helped me get through everything, like when I was trying to figure it out, because I always had that to like turn to. The only thing that like so the only like problem that I've ever had with like people who are like out and openly gay is people who like embody the stereotype, which isn't a bad thing, because like obviously like, there are people who are more feminine versus like more masculine, but I think that Adam Rippon is like the like pinnacle of like a feminine gay person, and like that's the stereotype that like a lot of people have in their head, and it's like what a lot of people don't like about people that are gay is that they like act like women basically, and like I'm not saying it's a bad thing, obviously, it's just like that's like the stereotype. So he's like kind of like supporting that stereotype, and like it stinks in a way that it's like figure skating, because they're like, oh well, that's gay anyway. But like I think that him and Gus Kenworthy both being out is such an important thing, because like the number one way to like increase the acceptance and like visibility is to have people who are gay like, competing. So like even if like a little kid is watching TV and they like want to go into figure skating, or they want to like go into any Olympic sport, and they hear like, oh, this person's gay, like that changes everything. Like that wasn't around when we were younger. Like we don't have like openly gay people, and if you were, it was like a huge issue. Like so I think now, and I wrote a research paper on this too, so I have like a million opinions on it too, and obviously like I got my own story featured too. So I think visibility is super important, and I think that like having it in the Olympics too, like that's like the #1 stage, like that's the highest it gets. And to have people who are like out and like comfortable sharing their identity and like not receiving backlash too is really, really important. And obviously like there is some backlash, but like it's the same thing. And there's this like big debate that's going on right now too about like how sports shouldn't be political, but like sports are inherently political. Like they just are. Like every time you step out, if you're gay, if you're black, if you're like any kind of like like any kind of minority identity, like it's political. It's like doing something that you like shouldn't be doing. So like to have people who are out there, because like there's probably a lot of gay Olympic athletes, but there's not a lot of like openly gay like out Olympic athletes. So to have them out is like it's like a really big story. And there's like the most out gay athletes ever that have ever competed at this Olympics, like for winter and then over the summer. In 2016, that was also like the most out like athletes that ever competed in the Summer Olympics. So like it's getting to be more and more of a thing. And like I remember like when I was writing my paper, a lot of people in my class were like kind of like, why does it matter? Like not in a rude way, just like why does this matter? But like every single time, like you can look up to someone and see like, oh, like this person does my sport, they do what I do. And like I think that speaking of Olympic athletes too, Tom Daley, like the diver, he is one of the most influential like gay people in my mind, because like he came out and no one was really like expecting it. He did it like online, like through YouTube. It wasn't like the media that did it, and like he was an inspiration. Like I remember watching that and I was like, oh, like it's like okay to do that. Like it's okay to be an athlete and to be gay. So like now he's in the media all the time. People follow him like for that reason, but he's also good too. So like it's like nice to see that it's not just like, oh, this man's getting attention because he came in last place at the Olympics and he's gay. It's like he's good and he's gay, so it's like a nice balance. A lot of stigmas that exist like in different ways. I think like the number one reason that I was scared is that people are like, oh my god, like I don't want to like be on a team with them, they're gonna be like staring at me, like all this stuff. And obviously like that's wrong. Like it's not like that's why I'm here. And then another one is like either they're like too feminine, or like they're not going to be as good, like they're not like one of the guys, like all this stuff. And like obviously that's not true too. Like just because I like guys doesn't mean that I like am not also friends with guys too. Like it like it's definitely like not a correct stigma. And then like I remember something too, like people always said like especially when I started triple jumping, like people were like, oh, that's gay, like that's like the ballerina, that's like the girl event. And I was like, okay, well I'm better at it than you, so like it doesn't really matter anyway. And people just like to stereotype anything they're not good at, I think, a lot of the times too. And so there is like the stigma too, like some sports are like gay, or people say like softball is for lesbians, like that kind of stuff. And like while in some cases, yes, that's true, like there are lesbians who play softball, like there's lesbians who play every other sport too, like. And I think that the stigma is just because people are like afraid to talk about it, and they like don't want them on their team. So like by stereotyping it, it just like silences everyone who like would want to talk about it. And obviously like those stereotypes, like in some cases stereotypes are true, but like for the most part they're not. Like it's just like a thing that people say. And like maybe there was like an incident once that happened with this, and people are like, oh well, this is definitely like how it goes. And I think that like by having openly gay Olympic athletes especially, like you're definitely starting to dispel the stereotypes too, because like they've been through it all. They trained, they got there, they like worked with other people obviously, like, and they like regardless of what sport they do too, like the fact that they're out and visible like shows that they like made it through. And like there's no stigma, like they're not bad, they're like just as good, if not significantly better than every single other person too. I think that like for me personally, like I'm never going to be like an Olympic athlete or like the number one like D1 starter. I might never even make it to like nationals or anything. And so I think that for me something that's super important is like the visibility of like being a gay athlete. I think that's a really important identity like together. Like I don't think that like being gay versus being an athlete is like a good debate. I know it's one that happens all the time, but I think that for me like the like crossing of those two identities is like what's most important, because like there aren't many gay athletes, or maybe there are, but they're just not out because it's like really hard to like come to terms with that. And I think that for me, like I like the fact that I'm both because it makes me different. And it's like I know that sometimes like in my own mind it's like overshadowing it, because now like I got an article written about me, and like that same website like now posts like every single week like how people do, like from different teams that have like shared their stories. So like I feel like because I am that, like I'm getting like more attention now, but like at the same time, like I don't want the fact that like I am gay to like make me different as an athlete, because like if I do bad, like I do bad regardless, and if I do good, I do good regardless. It's not like because of that I'm doing good or bad. So it's like I feel like it's a cool part of my identity, like it's like important, but it's not like defining.